Alright, what's up everyone? YouTube world. Talking about my Jinteki deck. I do not have a cool name for it. Maybe some of you guys have one, but I don't at the time. And Personal Evolution, do 1 net damage whenever an agenda is scored or stolen. So the overall theme on this deck is to do maximum amount of damage, look for opportunities to flatline, as well as rush agendas as much as possible. So I try to create a dual threat with this deck, and in terms of flatline and agenda victory, and I think I do a good. The deck does a pretty good job of that. I think it's built in a way that it's going to be able to do what you want it to do pretty consistently. So let's go through it. I'm pretty excited about this deck. I know that a lot of people have always, looked for ways to make Jinteki work, especially the flatline variation. Personally, I haven't played all of the versions out there, obviously, but I can tell you this one I think can hang at any level, and we'll give even the top runners fits. So let's go through it. Future Perfect is the first card I have here. I'm going to go through the agenda composition. I've changed several things through the deck as I've developed this deck, but one thing that actually has almost not changed at all is the agenda composition, and that is a Future Perfect because it takes up 3 points in 1 card, and it's a pretty defensive card in that it's a little bit difficult for the runner to steal. So if they do steal it, it sucks. Giving up 3 points is pretty brutal. But, I find the overwhelming majority of the games, they can't find it, or they don't steal it. So, Fetal AI, really, it's the perfect card for this deck in a lot of ways, simply for the fact that if it's stolen, it does 3 net damage. There are times where the runner steals it, they don't have the credits to take it, and they just take 2 net damage for accessing it. So, there are times also where maybe if I have a House of Knives scored, especially, the runner simply cannot get to a Fetal AI and score it. So maybe it's on like a Hokusai grid and I have a House of Knives scored and they're down to 1 or 2 cards in their hand. There's no way they're going to be able to get in and score that Fetal AI. So looking for windows like that to rush one out is really important. Moving on. Brain Trust. So initially I had Medical Breakthrough, and what I found about Medical Breakthrough is that it's not always reliable to be able to score it, at least as reliable as Brain Trust, I think, where Brain Trust, let's say I have advancement counters on Ice Wall or Shadow prepared, and I have a Brain Trust in hand, then all I need to do is draw into 1 Trick of Light. Or if I have a Trick of Light in hand, all I need to do is draw into a Brain Trust, versus Medical Breakthrough, it's going to require 2 Trickle Lights to get that thing going. And then I'm still going to need another Trickle Light to get the second one scored, and now I have to do recursion. And it's a lot simpler if I can just score 2 points straight up whenever I want. And that's why I went with Brain Trust. House of Knives as a 1-point agenda is important because it caps off a lot of the 2-pointers that I'm playing here. It's another way to trickle light and agenda, obviously, but the most important thing about House of Knives is its ability. And being able to do 1 net damage per run really compromises the runner quite a bit. And, it makes running very difficult for them, and accessing cards really difficult because they have to run, because in order for me to use the counters, they're going to have to run. So eventually I get to hit them with this damage as they're running on me, and then maybe I can even reduce their hand size enough where they have to jack out on runs. So it's just a pain in the butt, and any 1 net damage in this deck adds up over the course of a game for sure. So 2 of these is another 6 net damage I can do. Additionally, it's a free brain damage. It's not free, but it's the Tori Hanzo. I don't have to rely on anything the runner does except for initiate a run on the server, which Hanzo's on, for me to land net damage or brain damage, and that's really strong. So enough on House of Knives, but it is a monster. Phylotic Entanglement is also a monster, and I think it's a really smart card by the design team at FFG. It's just a really neat card to be able to flatline the runner, especially with it being a 3 for 2. You can trickle light it out, and if the runner knows you're playing it, which why wouldn't anyone in Personal Evolution play it? It can get pretty scary for the runner knowing that that's in there, and if they're on like 3-4 points. So losing it early is never fun. If I have it early in the game, a lot of times I might just try to fast advance score it just to get 2 points in the bucket, or optimally I'll probably try to pitch it and then have a Jackson on the table so I can maybe get a later game where I can use it as a finishing tool, because if it sits in my hand all game, it's likely to get taken. So I'll try to just push it out if I can, out of the hand, or like I said, if the game looks like maybe I'll be able to score a lot of consecutive agendas early, maybe I'll just score it so I can put the runner under a lot of pressure. But anyway, that's the agenda spread. I think it works really well. Moving on to the ice, 3, 4, 5. I have 10 ice, which is a lot of fun to only play 10 ice. But 3 data mine. So what you're going to find about the ice is that they're all really inexpensive to res. And they're going to do one of 3 other things. They're going to either do damage, data mine Yagura, or they're going to be advanceable, ice wall, shadow, or they're going to tag, which is shadow. So, but they're all cheap, and that's very important. But those are the things that I'm looking to do with my ice. I recently added ice wall. I had 3 shadow before, but now I split between 2 and 2. It gave me a little bit more, gave me another card obviously to trick a light off of. But the ice wall gave me a little flexibility to actually be able to rush an agenda with an end the run subroutine. So, you know, it's very, very possible with the amount of net damage I do to knock out corroders, or watch, you know, breakers fall where I can see that I have a window to score. And, you know, anytime I can score an agenda with this deck, it's absolutely huge, especially if I can do it without using a trick of light. There are ways to do it other than rushing behind an ice wall, but, you know, having just a little bit of end the run flexibility is pretty nice. And of course, most importantly, I can trick a light off of it. That's probably more important than anything. And then the shadow has the opportunity to have a runner go tag me, especially if I put some counters up on it and they don't really have a cheap way to deal with it. A lot of times they'll say screw it, and then that opens up the door for other things like Scorched Earth. So, but that's the ice composition. Primarily, I'm going to try and get Yaguras and shadows on centrals. I might put an ice wall on a remote. I might do some other things, but typically, usually, ice is going in centrals. But I think you can be pretty flexible based on how the game is going, and don't be too stuck in one strategy with this deck. I think you can play it a lot of different ways. So let's move on to the operations. We have 1 medical research fundraiser. Initially I started with 3, and then I went down to 2, and then I went to 0, and now I'm back to 1. So, I mean, the deck doesn't need a lot of econ, which is great. So I don't need a lot of econ cards for that reason. But there's times where it's nice to have a little boost, and 5 credits here is pretty nice if I'm holding on to 3 already. And there comes to a point inevitably in almost every game where the runner gets a tremendously large credit pool, and it doesn't really matter what their credits are anymore because I'm more focused on their cards than their credits. It's not like I'm trying to tax them with my ice or anything, so who cares really about their credit pool? In fact, sometimes I even maybe want them to get a little bit of money so they can start running on me. But anyway, it's just a nice little influx of income when I need it. I can kind of hang on to it too during the game if I get it early. Hedge fund, I don't need to justify that card. I think we know how good it is. Neural EMP. So Neural EMP, I had Cerebral Cast at first, and then I actually went down to 0 EMP, but I'm back with the EMP just because it's reliable net damage and it's a way to just keep pinging the runner. You know, a lot of times it's worth just paying 2 credits to hit them for a net damage. I mean, if I'm really gonna hit them for attrition for the entirety of the game, you know, like I said, any 1 net damage adds up, and if I have the time and the money to hit them, why not? You know, a lot of time. I mean, with this deck, there's not much better things I could be doing than doing damage, and Neural EMP certainly accomplishes that. And with the possibility of having a couple in hand, or maybe being able to do EMP, Archive Memories, EMP, there's some flatline ability there. So anyway, puts pressure. It's a little pricey, I think, having to pay 2 credits to do it, but all in all, it's a reliable way to hit the runner. So I think for that, it's good. Trickle Light. So probably the most necessary card in the deck, because my experience of trying to build a Jinteki deck that can only flatline is that it's going to fail almost inevitably. In the long haul, I mean, yeah, you're going to flatline people, but you're going to lose a lot of games just because you can't flatline certain runners, or certain games. It's just not going to work out for you. So you need another way to do that, and Trickle Light gives you opportunities to score agendas, and gives you opportunities to bluff. Like, for example, if I have 2 snares in my hand and they've already seen me like Trickle Light an agenda or 2 out, and let's say I Archive Memories a Trickle Light back into my hand, well, now that might tip off the runner, time to run the hand. Well, I did that. In fact, what I did instead is I double advanced an Ice Wall, so the runner thought, okay, they must be, you know, looking to score here. Came in leg, worked the hand, found 2 snares, and died. So, you know, there's little tricks you can do. The Trickle Light aspect, the fast advance specifically aspect, puts a lot of pressure on the runner, especially when you're on 5 points, 6 points. It can really make a lot of pressure on the runner. Additionally, like I said before, with Phylotic Entanglement, if they have 3-4 agendas scored, they know that the race is on too before I can get that thing scored. So with Archive Memories, it gives me more flexibility when so I can score whenever I need to. Anyway, just a great card. The deck would not work without it, period. Scorched Earth. So I started the deck with 2 Scorched Earths and 3 Cerebral Casts for tagging. And what I did is I eased back on the tagging and just went with 1 Scorched Earth. So A, it freed up some influence for Archive Memories. B, you know, it'd be so nice to have 2 Scorched Earth, but the 4 influence is just so painful. And again, if I have the 1 Scorched Earth and Archive Memories at my disposal, the only way they're going to get tagged is on their turn anyway. So if I have 6 credits, I can still get them if I have a Scorched Earth and an Archive Memories in hand. Or I could always like EMP Scorched Earth. So, you know, I think there's a little bit of flexibility even still having 1 Scorched Earth, because a fair amount of runners will go tag me with Siphon, or maybe they'll say screw it with the Shadow. Maybe they'll just hope that I'm not playing Scorched Earth, or maybe, you know, they'll get stuck at last click on a snare, or maybe hit 2 snares on a R&D or HQ dig, and not be able to clear both tags. So you know, there's enough reason, I think, to run 1 Scorched Earth. Plus it's a deterrent. Maybe they drop a Carapace. That's another card that I don't have to knock out of their hand that they played themselves. So, you know, there's intangible reasons for Scorched Earth as well. And I just want to have it there as a threat. So chances are I'm probably not going to use it a lot, but I think having it as a threat is well worth the investment of 1 card and 4 influence. Archive Memories is a really wonderful, versatile card for so many things. You know, I can pull out agendas. I can pull back maybe if someone parasited an ice wall. Maybe I can pull that back so I can start advancing it for trickle light. Maybe I need to pull back some econ. Maybe I need to pull back an EMP, a trickle light for more scoring. Scorched Earth, as I just mentioned. I could pull back a Tori Hanzo to do more brain damage. Snare if my hand has agendas in it and I want to protect my hand. I mean, the options are pretty endless with Archive Memories, and that's ultimately why I dropped that second Scorched Earth, is so I could have two Archive Memories. It's just so strong and so flexible. It's cheap. I think it's a great card and one of the better cards in the game, actually, in my opinion. Moving on, Tori Hanzo is a great way to do brain damage, probably the best way in the game to do brain damage, because it's a way to make it totally unavoidable for the runner unless they don't run or they have net shield or something. So by and large, it's unavoidable. Tori Hanzo with Data Mine is going to hit almost every single time. Hokusai Grid with Tori Hanzo is going to hit every time. Yagura can also hit them. So their House of Knives is going to hit them every time. So I have, you know, 1, 2, 3. I have 12 cards that combo. Is that right? Yeah, 12 cards that combo with Tori Hanzo. So I think playing 3 is more than justified. I can usually get 1 or 2 brain damage in, and 1 or 2 brain damage can make life a lot more difficult on a runner. It makes, you know, it just compresses the amount of clicks they have in a game because they have to spend so many more clicks drawing. And, you know, 2 brain damage in a game, 2 or 3 brain damage in a game is practically suicide for the runner. They have to get pretty lucky at that point to pull it out. But anyway, it's a lot of fun too to hit people with brain damage. 3 Snare. So the problem with Snare is it is expensive to run them. However, seldomly there's a better way to spend 4 credits than putting a tag and doing 3 net damage on the runner. I mean, those are the two of the primary functions of what my deck is trying to do: tag and damage. So to invest 4 credits in that is usually pretty justified to do that. And I just have to, you know, just try to always keep my credit pool at least 4. 4, 5, 6 is the optimal range for this deck. I mean, if you can have 8, that's good, because then you can hit with 2 snares. But, you know, so I'd say probably 8 to 10 is optimal. But realistically, you can do perfectly well with a credit pool of 4 to 6. 4 to 6 credits at any time, and you'll be able to pretty much make the deck run in its entirety. So other than maybe like the snare thing. So just keep that in mind, I guess, if you're playing it. Hokusai Grid, I somehow didn't have this card in at first, and I mean, I just had to get real with myself. What am I trying to do with this deck? I'm trying to do net damage. Well, Hokusai Grid is like a 2 credit guarantee to do net damage. If they don't trash it, you know, then I get to do it again. If they do trash it, they had to spend 4 credits. It stops indexing. It stops security testing. It is a really versatile card that will consistently do net damage for you. That's cheap and expensive for the runner. So Hokusai Grid, it's an amazing card. I mean, the value that you get from this card, it's very difficult to not justify playing 3 of them. So I definitely suggest if you're going to play a net damage deck, Hokusai Grid makes a lot of sense to me. Shaku, so really neat card, Shaku. I started with Shocks. I had 3 Shocks, and what I liked about Shock and still like about Shock, and maybe I'll take out the EMPs. That's an interesting thought. I could take out the EMPs for Shocks. It's worth considering, I guess. But what I like about Shock is that it costs 0. What I like about Shaku is, I mean, what I don't like about it is its access in the R&D. It costs a little bit of money, but It couples really well with Philotic Entanglement. I can do probably 2-3 damage with that card if I have it. When it's in the archives, it's a pain in the butt for the runner. They don't want to run it, knowing that those are in there. So it gives me a little bit of a safe zone to maybe store some agendas. And it's still a new card for me. I haven't been playing it for a while. Like I said, I was playing Shock. I just switched him out, but I like it. So far, it's done well for me. I'm not, I do really, really like Shock. I think I might find a way to get the Shocks in here somehow. I don't know how, but see if I can figure that out. Maybe you guys will have some suggestions. And then last but not least, Jackson Howard. So, I think what Jackson does better than any other card in this game, other than certain obvious things, but he extends the game. He keeps the game going. You can hide agendas. You can shove them in the archives, move things around. You can whatever. It keeps the game going. In an attrition deck, a lot of times the clock is ticking for the runner, and they just need to be able to find enough agendas to win before they get flatlined or run out of cards. And Jackson is the best way to just keep the runner running, take damage here and there, and just keep prolonging the game so the runner's damage total adds up throughout the course of the game. But that's what I'm working with right now for this deck. It's been a constant work in progress, and it is a lot of fun to play. I think you can certainly play it with 2 Scorched Earths in there. I think that's perfectly viable. There's a lot of things you can do with it, I'm sure, and I'll be excited to hear it. I'm sure some people have some variations on what they would like to see for themselves. But anyway, that's the primary function of how this thing works. Hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys have some comments, and that's about it. That's a wrap.